Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all keeping well. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined again by Fabrizio Romano, of course, transfer expert. Fabrizio, how are you?
Hey, my friend. All good. Thank you. And thanks for the invitation, as always.
Fabrizio, before I give you any names, have you any good news for us Tottenham fans?
No, many things are moving, so Fabio Paratici is always working on many things. He's in Italy now, so many things are going to happen, of course, many conversations, and then we will see. We know he works on many things at the same point, and at the same time, so we have to wait a bit and see at the end what will happen.
Fabrizio, what's the latest on Jed Spence? Of course, there's been so much speculation linking him with a move to Tottenham. What's the latest on him?
Yes, there are still negotiations, I'm told, still negotiations ongoing. So I'm told that it's still something possible. But you remember, I mentioned the last time that there was still no official bid, and some Tottenham fans were not so happy with me because maybe elsewhere were seeming like a done deal. It was not a done deal, and it's still on at the moment. So they're still conversating on the potential fee, on the potential proposal, but there is still no official bid. So we have to wait a bit, see if Tottenham will decide to submit this proposal or move on some different target. We know that, as I mentioned before, Fabio Paratici works on many players for the same position. This is not new, and so Spence has always been an important target for Tottenham, but I'm sure not the only one. So let's wait a bit before saying that it's over or something like that. But for sure, at the moment, there is still no official bids.
How far away are the clubs on valuation?
Well, at the moment, is more than valuation. Is about the add-ons, the structure of the deal, about the value of the player. There are no big doubts. It's about the structure of the deal, the payment terms, the value of the add-ons, this kind of things. And also, we have to mention that with Fabio works on many different players, it means that maybe there could be some other opportunity in the list for Tottenham. So, for example, at the moment, there is no bid or negotiation, but a player that he's always been tracking is Wilfried Singo from Torino. We know, when we mentioned here many times, that Tottenham sent their scouts to follow him many times, or maybe I'm sure he has some other name in the list also as potential alternatives. But let's remind that for Spence, they are still working. I'm not saying that the deal is off.
There is so much speculation at the moment about Rafinha and Richarlison. Do you think the Spurs could possibly get one of these deals done?
They're trying. They're trying for both players. They are in for both players. Their feeling that with Rafinha is a complicated one because the player has an agreement with Barcelona, but Barcelona can't pay what Leeds want at the moment. And so it's up to Barca if they want to run to 65 million pounds, but at the moment they are around 40 million euros. So it's a big gap. And then Arsenal are pushing a lot on Rafinha. So I'm curious to see what is going to happen in the coming days, in the coming weeks with Rafinha, because Arsenal are really pushing. They made a proposal for Rafinha. They are still in contact with Leeds. So Arsenal are on it, but also Tottenham had a conversation with Leeds, with Fabio Paratici working on it. So, it's still an open race for Rafinha. It's still a discussion and we have to consider open. For Richarlison, it's different because for Richarlison is an opportunity, but Tottenham at the moment are not offering what Everton want. So it's still a early conversation, I would say, for Richarlison. We have to keep an eye on a potential swap deal in case it will be Richarlison, because there are players who could be interesting for Everton, like Winks. Winks is a player they are discussing in a separate deal, but could become an opportunity for Everton in case they will decide to discuss on a potential swap deal with Richarlison. So there are many things to discuss between the two clubs. They have a very good relationship, but I'm sure that at the moment the focus is on Rafinha. The first one to move, into my feeling with sources, will be Rafinha. So we have to see if it will be Tottenham, Arsenal, or if Barcelona will decide to spend crazy money on him.
We know that Fabio Paratici looks at a number of different players, Fabrizio. Apart from Richarlison and Rafinha, any other forward players that we're being linked with?
For example, a player that Tottenham always appreciated is Gabriel Jesus, but we know that he's now really close to join Arsenal. So at the moment, he's not an easy one. And also Fabio Paratici here in Italy yesterday night had a meeting with Roma director Tiago Pinto. We know that Fabio has always been a big fan of Nicolo Zaniolo. This is not new. We mentioned here many times, and this is why we will always have links for Zaniolo and Tottenham. At the moment, there is no conversation or negotiation. So yesterday at the meeting, they spoke of Joe Rodon as a potential option for Roma in case they will sell a centre-back this summer. But Zaniolo is a player that has always been into the favourites of Fabio Paratici. He has still to discuss a new contract with Roma. So at the moment, it's not a negotiation. Let me clarify, I saw many rumours. It's not a negotiation between Roma and Tottenham about the price of Zaniolo or a potential deal. But they just spoke of other players. But let's remind that Zaniolo is always a player that Fabio is tracking. So I would mention these names, and at the moment, everything else is still secret, but with Paratici is always like this.
It's got so many names to get through. Mohamed Simakan.
Simakan is a player that I mentioned a few days ago because Tottenham are tracking him since a long time. The only point is he's not left-footed, so I'm not sure he's a priority for this summer. We know that they're looking at left-footed centre-backs, but he's a player that they really appreciate and they are scouting, they're following. So let's see. Also, Gabriel could be an option. In this case, yes, left-footed, and so could be one of the most interesting options. The real point is it's not easy to negotiate with Leipzig. We know that Leipzig are already going probably to lose Leimer this summer with Bayern really interested, and so I'm not sure they will be prepared to accept to sell another key player as could be Simakan or Gvardiol. So not an easy one, but for sure Tottenham are keeping an eye on these two players.
You mentioned last time Pau Torres. Any update on that one?
Still quiet at the moment. Still quiet. He's a player that they discussed with Villarreal. We know that last summer Tottenham were really interested and then it didn't happen. At the moment, he's still quiet because the conversation was about Lo Celso. So the conversation between Tottenham and Villarreal, the last contest they had, were about Lo Celso and not Pau Torres. Pau Torres had the opportunity to be part of this conversation. So they asked about Pau Torres, but was not a direct deal or something like that. And Tottenham and Villarreal at the moment on Lo Celso are still not on the same point on the salary, and they're not on the same point on the formula of the deal, not on the same point on the payment terms. So it's not an easy one. Villarreal want him, and I'm sure that they will try again in the coming days, but it's not an easy one. So they had a conversation on Pau Torres, but it's not something like imminent. We know that the first choice was Alessandro Bastoni, but if Skriniar is going to be sold from Inter, I'm sure that for Bastoni it will be the case to stay.
So one name that's come up this morning is Jonathan Klaus. Latest on that one?
He's one of the players that has been discussed with many Premier League clubs, not just Tottenham. Some Premier League clubs, like other top Premier League clubs, and not only Premier League clubs, because he's been offered also in Italy. So it could be one of the backup options, but at the moment is not the priority. And we are still in the moment of the market where Tottenham, as all the top clubs, are looking at the top options, at the priority options. So at the moment, it's not something like close or imminent.
Cody Gakpo?
Cody Gakpo, at the moment, I'm told is in Leeds list. So for Tottenham, at the moment, is not something like close or imminent. It could be an opportunity, I think, for many clubs, as I mentioned. Priority for the top clubs now is Rafinha. Rafinha, Richarlison, these are the two players that all the top clubs are tracking, including Tottenham. And so Arsenal, we mentioned on Rafinha, but also Chelsea will go for some of these players as part of their list, because both Richarlison and Rafinha are also on Chelsea list. So many top clubs are going on these two players. I feel that Gakpo could be an alternative for the clubs that are not signing one of these two players. So this is kind of domino, but for Gakpo, I think it will take some time, and Leeds are tracking him to replace Rafinha.
Do you think we can finally cross off a return for Christian Eriksen now?
I think at the moment for Christian Eriksen, the situation is still super quiet for Tottenham. They are not pushing. They had a conversation with his agent, Martin Schotz. It was 20 days ago, and then they didn't follow up with a proposal, with an official bid. I'm sure that Fabio Paratici is now busy with different things. We mentioned the striker, we mentioned the centre-back, we mentioned the right-back. So other things are the priority for Tottenham. And for Christian Eriksen, the feeling I have right now is Manchester United and Brentford. I would keep Brentford in the race, because I know that they're really underrated in this Eriksen list, in this Eriksen potential decision, but they are still there. They submitted a proposal, and so it's Brentford and United. For Tottenham at the moment is so quiet.
What's the latest on Steven Bergwijn? Does it look like this deal with Ajax is done now?
It's not done yet, but the feeling is that there are very good chances. Very good chances. They need to discuss something on the add-ons structure. But when you are at the add-ons and this kind of details, it means that you are getting really closer. The player wants to go. He's been pretty clear. He wants to go, and he's really attracted by this possibility with Ajax. Ajax want him as a priority since a long time. They are losing a lot of players, so they need to bring in some important player, and Bergwijn is top of the list for them. So I think it will take some days before saying, okay, it's done, it's completed, but they are working on it. And so my feeling is that at the end, Bergwijn will leave Tottenham this summer to join Ajax.
Fabrizio, how confident are you that Antonio Conte is going to get everything on his shopping list, a right-back, a centre-back, creative midfielder and a striker? And do you think that these deals will be done before Spurs go on tour to South Korea?
About timing, I don't know, because it's always like this in football, and Antonio knows so well that you ask player before you go on tour and you prepare your pre-season, but then at the end the transfer market is something different, so you need to wait on some of the players. And I repeat, Antonio knows about that. Of course, every manager wants the player before the tour, but then is not happening. So I'm sure that Fabio is doing his best to sign his players as soon as possible. Paratici is working on many things because he wants to make sure to have, for example, the right back as soon as possible. And then the striker, he knows that in this moment on the market with Gabriel Jesus, with Rafinha, with Richarlison, you have to be fast. So they are working on it. And I'm sure that Tottenham, at the end of the market, they will have the players they want and they will cover the positions they wanted. So I don't see a complicated market like January. You remember that January was a really tough one with Adama, with many other things that were not easy. Now looks completely different. And so I would be confident, honestly.
Fabrizio, lastly, you said I wouldn't be at all surprised if Fabio Paratici pulls a surprise out of the bag. He's up to all sorts of things. Can you elaborate on that and perhaps explain what he's doing in Italy at the moment, who he's talking to?
No, in Italy, as always, he has a lot of relationships, of course, and so he met with Sampdoria to discuss about Bryan Gil, who is an option also for Marseille, and many clubs are asking for him on loan. So he's exploring opportunities, but in particular for players to leave Tottenham. This is the real priority. But I'm sure that Fabio, as I mentioned, and I always mention, he works on many and many and many players at the same time. But sometimes he's also 4 or 5 players on the same position. So this is why I won't be surprised if at the end he's not one of the players we mentioned and he jumps on an opportunity. Like Bissouma was a top secret opportunity. They wanted to wait till the end, and then they decided to jump into it with Antonio Conte approving the deal, and it was a very fast one. So this is why I say that with Fabio, you never know.
Just quickly, how many players do you think we will sign from now until the end of the window?
Maybe 3, 4. This could be the number. I feel 3 or 4 players, I would say.
Good stuff. Fabrizio, can't thank you enough for coming on again. Thanks so much, and we'll speak to you soon.
Thank you as always, and see you soon. And wish the best to Tottenham fans. Ciao.
Thanks, Fabrizio. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. And if you're listening to this on an audio podcast, thanks so much, and I'll see you on the next one. Until then, come on, you Spurs.